With Columbina now released, the not cry meta is finally realized, and it's completely broken, offering some of the strongest units in the game. And after making my top 5 strongest DPS list, I feel it would be fitting to now go over the supports. So today, we're ranking the new top 5 best limited 5-star supports in Genshin Impact. After testing every single one with both their best and free-to-play teams, I'll go over their strengths and weaknesses, highlight their best team options, and explain why they are the best limited 5-star supports in the game, so you know who is worth your pulls, as well as which one would be the best for you. Hello, welcome to Genshin Filter, your quick guide for everything Genshin. So let's get started! VARKA and Flins are here. And before you empty your wallets in the shop, let me share with you a site that will save you a lot of money. Top Up Live. This site lets you top up all the most popular games at much cheaper prices. By using my link, you can get up to 30% off compared to in-game prices. It's super simple. Just enter your UID and server and you're done. It's 100% safe using PCI security and delivers in just a few minutes. And for an even better deal, use my code FILTER for an additional 12% off. So hit my link in the description or pinned comment to get these great deals. And thank you Top Up Live for sponsoring this video. As I said, I'm only covering the best limited 5-star supports to help you decide who is worth prioritizing in your pool strategy. There are also extremely strong 4-star supports in Genshin, but I'll cover them in a separate video, so make sure to subscribe so you don't miss it. Now, there are many limited 5-star supports who are very strong but didn't make the list, but still very much deserve recognition. Characters like Furina, who barely fell out of the ranking despite being amazing, as well as other great units such as Durin, Shilonen, Kazuha, Nahida, and even Mavuika as a sub-DPS, who are all some of the best supports in the game. But in today's meta, they simply don't contribute enough to their teams to justify a top spot. Regarding the upcoming Linnea, since she isn't released yet, I can't officially include her on this list, but I know many of you are wondering where she would stand. From what we know so far, she is a very strong candidate and could have made this list. She appears to be a top-tier support specifically for Lunar crystallized teams, much like how Lauma and Ineffa dominate their respective Lunar reactions. However, unlike them, Lunar crystallized already has Ilua as a dedicated support. On top of that, Linnea seems heavily restricted to hydro-based Lunar crystallized teams, which significantly limits her versatility compared to the other supports here. The fact that she is Geo also lowers her overall value in today's more common reactions-focused meta. That said, she will almost certainly be a massive upgrade for Lunar crystallized teams. If you're invested in that archetype, she could absolutely be top tier for you. I'll be releasing a complete guide on her very soon, so be on the lookout for that. When it comes to this list, as much as I want to order these characters from worst to best, like I did with the top 5 DPS video, it simply won't work, as we are no longer talking about a fixed damage number, but how much a character will contribute and support your specific account. And in today's meta, where there are so many great characters and team archetypes, any support on this list can be the best for you, depending on what units you already have, as well as how much you have invested in them. That said, the characters on this list are all the best supports for their respective team archetypes. Not having them will result in a massive loss in damage, and they play a very big role in building some of the most powerful teams in the game. They also maintain a respectable level of versatility, and significantly elevate free-to-play teams of their archetypes to handle current endgame enemies. So with all that out of the way, let's dive right in. Citlali is the best melt support in the game, and pretty much the best support for any pyro DPS that cares about melt, and some of them are considered among the strongest units in the game, which dramatically increases her value. What is unique about her is that she is the only cryo unit who can consistently keep up with modern pyro application, while being the sole cryo in the team. That makes her uniquely valuable in high investment melt compositions. In addition to enabling consistent reactions, she provides shielding, buffs to both pyro and hydro units, and can hold the Cinder City set, making her one of the most efficient support slots available. She also buffs hydro characters in freeze teams, which makes her one of the better options for freeze compositions, especially those that run a hydro carry. When it comes to weaknesses, even though she's the best cryo applier for melt, she's still not fast enough to keep up with the pyro aura of every carry, especially the most powerful ones. Because of that, you will need to learn and perform specific combos for each pyro carry, and pay attention to enemy auras so you do not lose your melt reactions. This makes her less comfortable to play and more demanding mechanically, which can be frustrating if you fail to execute properly. However, these combos are not overly complex, and once mastered, they push these pyro carries to a completely different level of damage. Her best teams are obviously melt-focused pyro compositions, specifically with Mavuika, who is currently the 4th strongest DPS in the game. She can even reach first place if you add another cryo unit like Escoffier and perform her new combo setups, although they are considered difficult and less practical. Arlecchino is also an extremely strong pairing with Citlali, as Arlecchino greatly appreciates the shielding since she cannot be healed. Plunge-based pyro DPS like Gaming and Diluc can deal very respectable damage, mainly because of Citlali, and really any pyro DPS who benefits from Melt will see their team elevated significantly with her. For freeze teams, Neuvillette is one of her best options due to her strong hydro buffs to both him and Furina, and he also appreciates the shielding. Skirk is also a strong team for her if you do not have Shenhe. For free-to-play teams, once you have Citlali paired with your main carry, you can run very accessible supports like Bennett, Janssen, or even Sucrose and still deal some of the highest damage in the game, especially if those 4 stars are at C6. If you have Mavuika, I highly recommend getting Citlali. And for any other pyro carry that benefits from Melt, she's a strong upgrade if you are willing to learn the necessary combos. I would not recommend pulling her specifically for freeze teams alone, but if you already want her for Melt and can also use her in freeze, she becomes a very strong and flexible pick. Escoffier is the best freeze support in the game, single-handedly bringing the freeze reaction back into the meta, as well as the cryo element itself. She provides strong team-wide healing, consistent off-field cryo damage, and meaningful buffs to both hydro and cryo units, all in one slot. This allows teams to drop a dedicated healer and instead run full offensive supports, significantly increasing overall damage output. She deals very high personal damage herself, while still maintaining strong team sustain, which makes freeze teams both powerful and comfortable to play. When it comes to weaknesses, Escoffier is element restricted. Her full damage and buffing potential only work in teams composed of hydro and cryo units, to the point where playing freeze without her is simply not worth considering. Because of that, outside of pure freeze teams, her value drops significantly. However, she still provides so much utility and power compared to the alternatives that she can be one of the best options even outside freeze. Her best team is the freeze team with Skirk, who is the 5th strongest DPS in the game, being her dedicated carry and pretty much going hand in hand with her. When adding Furina to the mix, all 3 synergize extremely well, thanks to them buffing each other, and Escoffier's team-wide healing that Furina benefits from. But even outside Skirk teams, this pairing works amazingly with other carries, like Neuvillette, which is currently his best team, apparently even better than the Lunar wheelchair, even if he is at C1. And it also allows Ayaka to perform competitively. As I said, you can even play her outside of freeze, like in Mavuika's new combo teams, which if performed properly, can make Mavuika the best DPS in the game, showing how meta-defining she is even outside of freeze. She is probably also VARKA's best support for his cryo-focused teams. Her longevity is also amazing, as any Hydro or Cryo main DPS released in the future will almost certainly consider her a top-tier partner. For free-to-play teams, as long as you have one of these carries along with Escoffier, honestly any Hydro or Cryo characters you place in the last slots will still allow the team to perform fairly well. If you are going for Skirk, Escoffier is pretty much a must-pull, but really, if you are serious about investing in a freeze team, no matter who the carry is, Escoffier will certainly be your most important piece of the team, both now and for the near future. Lauma is the best support for any Bloom reaction team, such as Bloom, Hyperbloom and Burgeon, while also enabling and buffing the new Lunar Bloom reaction by generating verdant dews and increasing lunar damage. Her strength comes from how perfectly her kit is tuned to Bloom mechanics. She provides constant and reliable Dendro application that does not need to be reapplied every time an enemy falls, unlike Nahida. And she also allows Bloom reactions to crit, which dramatically increases their damage. In addition to that, she deals very high personal damage, including Luna damage, further increasing her overall team contribution and her ability to deal with Luna-type enemies, which are some of the more restrictive mechanics in the game to brute force. When it comes to weaknesses, her crit buff to Bloom, Hyperbloom and Burgeon only works when the Ascended Gleam Resonance is not active. This means you cannot get the maximum Bloom buff when playing with 2 Nodcry characters, which is a shame, as it would have been amazing with someone like Ineffa or Columbina. Instead, in the Ascended Gleam state, she provides a lunar damage crit buff. Also, outside of Bloom-related teams, her value drops noticeably, especially in quickened team setups. But that limitation hardly matters, because Bloom, Hyperbloom and Burgeon are the only Dendro reactions that truly matter right now, and Lauma completely dominates all of them. Her best team is the Lunar Damage team with Nefer, who is currently the #1 DPS. She acts as a dedicated support for her, where not having Lauma on the team results in a very significant loss in Nefer's damage. But the same can be said for any other Bloom team she is not part of. She is also the best support for on-field Columbina, who focuses on dealing Lunar Bloom damage. And of course, she excels in regular Bloom reaction teams such as Bloom with Nilou, Hyper Bloom which currently performs best with Neuvillette or with Aoife and Mizuki, and Burgeon, which is decent but has never been extremely dominant in the meta. Still, Lauma elevates all of these teams to another tier compared to how Nahida performed with them, which completely overshadowed her. For free-to-play teams, Lauma dramatically increases the power ceiling of standard Bloom setups. One of Bloom's main strengths is how easy it is to build and how free-to-play friendly it is. You can simply stack Elemental Mastery on your Hyper Bloom or Burgeon trigger and already reach very high damage numbers. At C1, her value increases even further as she gains the ability to heal the active character. This allows her to function as a sub-DPS, reaction enabler, and healer all in one character, and enabling teams to run more offensive units without sacrificing survivability. If you have Nefer or play on-field Columbina, then Lauma is a very important piece of their teams. Not having her will significantly reduce the value of investing in those carries. And if you want to take your Bloom teams to the next level, she is highly recommended. Ineffa is the best Lunar charge support in the game, bringing Electro charge teams back into the meta. Ineffa provides a reliable shield and a strong elemental mastery buff. She both enables and buffs the Lunar charge reaction, which is simply stronger than the old Electro charge reaction. She also provides consistent off-field Electro application with very high damage, all within one character. On top of that, she has some of the best abilities for dealing with the new Nodecry enemies, dealing both high Lunar damage and Lunar charge damage, which seem to be the most common enemy requirements in Nodecry. This significantly increases her practical value in current content. When it comes to weaknesses, Ineffa is heavily tied to Lunar Charged, as the majority of her damage comes from the Lunar Charged reaction, meaning she does not perform as well in Overload or Aggravate teams. However, thanks to the unique property of Electro and Hydro being able to coexist on an enemy at the same time, you can mix reactions to create multi-reaction teams, like Overvape and Quick Bloom, which are extremely powerful with her. And in many scenarios, using her on a team that needs a sustain, even though she doesn't have synergy with the team, can be your best option given how much utility she provides. Her best team is a Lunar Charge team with Flins, who is the second strongest DPS in the game, where she acts as his dedicated support, just like the other characters on this list do for their respective carries. And like the others, not having Ineffa in the team results in a very significant loss in damage. She's also extremely strong in the Quick Bloom teams we covered with Columbina and Lauma, as she benefits from building Elemental Mastery and provides an EM buff herself. You can also use her with Arlecchino for a very strong Overvape team, and since Arlecchino does not heal, she greatly appreciates Ineffa's shielding. For free-to-play teams, as long as you have your main DPS and Ineffa on the team, almost any 4-star character that supports the reaction will allow the team to achieve very strong results. In general, using Ineffa to enable Lunar Charged will always be the stronger choice if you want to play an Electro Charged team. So if you have Flins, she is an incredibly strong support for his team, especially if you also have Columbina, who works perfectly with her. Even just having Ineffa in your roster to help deal with the new Lunar Charge focused enemies is a great addition, and I would highly recommend her. Columbina is the best Lunar reaction support in the game. She might not be the single best support for each individual Lunar reaction, but the level of versatility she gives your account by enabling all 3 Lunar reactions in a team, while also buffing them dramatically, elevates all 3 Lunar DPS to deal some of the highest damage in the game. That alone makes her a massive upgrade to any account in today's meta. Her core strength lies in directly enhancing all Lunar reactions, not just by buffing them but also by adding new attributes that improve quality of life and increase overall damage. In addition to that, she delivers very high off-field sub-DPS, further increasing her total team contribution. When it comes to weaknesses, Columbina's value is tied to the Lunar reactions. Outside of them, her impact drops significantly compared to more universal supports like Furina or Shilonen. However, since the meta is currently heavily focused on Lunar reactions, she remains a top-tier unit. Another limitation is that we only have one Columbina, while there are 3 top Lunar DPS characters. This increases her value, but it can also reduce the value of pulling multiple Nodecry carries, since they all compete for the same core support. Her best teams are with the 3 Lunar reaction carries. With Flins, she significantly elevates Lunar charge damage and synergizes perfectly with Ineffa by doubling the Cloud Lunar charge strike through her burst buff, forming the strongest 2-unit core in the game right now, even outside of Flins teams. With Nefer, she brings major quality of life improvements by solving Verdant Dew consumption issues and allowing the team to reach its highest damage potential with much more comfort. Adding Lauma to Columbina and Ineffa likely creates the best 3-unit core in the game, effectively carrying almost any character you place in the final slot. With Zibai, she significantly buffs the team, very similar to her contribution in Lunar charge teams, by doubling the Lunar crystallize hit from Lunar shards. She is also predicted to synergize extremely well with Linnea once she releases. She can also function as a main DPS herself, dealing very impressive damage with Lunar support, which adds even more to her overall value. For free-to-play teams, Columbina's ability to enable all Lunar reactions simply by being on the team is extremely valuable. For players who cannot afford every dedicated Lunar support, but still want access to the new reactions and the ability to handle new enemy mechanics, she provides a complete solution in a single unit, which raises her value a lot. But if you do want to build her absolute best teams with the Lunar DPS units, then in that case she can be considered expensive, as I would highly recommend prioritizing their dedicated supports first, and only then pulling Columbina. And in both scenarios, if you can afford it, I would highly recommend her. It's honestly crazy how different the support list is looking compared to just a few patches ago. Not just in its members, but in how supports used to be universally impactful. Whereas now they are mostly locked into specific dedicated archetypes. Notcry redefined the meta and introduced a new breed of extremely broken supports that honestly dwarfs the value of many of the older ones. Oyo really leaned in all the way with the dedicated support for each archetype, leaving very little room for versatility except with Columbina, which is what makes her so good. But that also comes with a trade-off, since she isn't individually stronger than the most specialized supports, like Ineffa, Lauma, or even the upcoming Linnea within their specific archetypes. I want to emphasize again what I said at the start, that any support value depends heavily on your account. This list isn't about who has the biggest numbers like the DPS ranking. The best support for you will always depend on which carries you own, how invested they are, and which reaction archetype you're building around. Another important point is that if you are debating between pulling a DPS or pulling a support for a specific archetype, I would argue that supports are almost always more valuable in the long term, especially at this stage of the game where power creep is happening all the time. Given there are 3 support slots in a team and only 1 DPS slot, mathematically that gives supports much more room to stay relevant over time. Even when a new and better support for the same archetype is released, you still have multiple slots where older supports can coexist and continue to provide value. But when a new and stronger DPS is released for the same archetype, you usually have no other choice but to bench your current one. And it doesn't feel great, but that's just part of how this game evolves. So the takeaway is the DPS units are important and fun to get, but supports generally offer more options, flexibility, and better longevity, which translate to more value in Genshin's current meta. And that was the top 5 best limited 5-star support to pull for in the game right now. Let me know down in the comments if you agree with this list and which one you got or plan on pulling. And if this video helped you in any way, consider giving it a like and subscribe for more filter guides. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Cheers!